Hi and welcome to this DCP web tutorial. In today's tutorial we're going to design a business logo using GIMP. So let's go ahead and open up GIMP software. And I'll show you the sort of logo we're going to design. We're going to create something like this, similar to this one here. So the first thing we do is go File, New. And we want to set the width to 1920 by 1920. So try and set your resolutions to exactly these pixel sizes. Click on Advanced and then fill the background with transparency. So fill with transparency here. Then click OK. Now we've got a blank canvas. The first thing we really want to do is put some guides into here so we can pinpoint the exact center. So we can do that by going to, go to Image, Guides, and then we're going to do New Guide by percent. So we'll click here. And then it gives us an option. The direction of the guide will be horizontal, so it'll be along the width. And we want to set it to the 50%, so exactly in the middle along the width. So we'll click OK. And that will draw a line, this blue line across here. So that just helps us to pinpoint the center. And then we're going to go back to View. We'll go to Image, Guide, New Guide. And this time we're going to do it on the vertical. And 50% as well. And click OK. Now we can pinpoint exactly where the center is. Now the next thing we want to do is, if we look at the original logo, we want to draw this black circle around the edge. And each one of these circles is a different layer. You can see all the different layers here. So we're going to start off with the main layer. So we'll go back here and click on the Ellipse tool. And this is where you've got to be a bit careful. You need to left click and hold down the mouse button. So put your cursor quite close to the center. Left click and then drag out, so you see this circle start to appear. Then hold down the shift and the control key, and then you can drag out your circle. And we don't want the circle to touch the yellow edge, so we want it to be like one of these little boxes in, something like this. And then you can let go of the control, shift and the mouse key. So you see this little white circle, this faded circle here. Now all this is a selection, so what we want to do is fill it with a color. So in your swatches here, you've got the foreground color and you've got the background sitting behind. And you may have white on top and black behind, or you might have black on top with white behind. It doesn't really matter too much, but I would suggest that we put them the other way around. So we have white on top and then the black in the background. If these colors are different on your screen, you can click on the actual front one, so the top one, click on it, and then make sure you select a white color. So all you do is just drag your mouse to the very top left hand corner, or set the HTML notation to all Fs. So you'll have 6 Fs in here. You can click on white, make sure it's white and click OK. And then go to the black one behind. So you click on the background one here, click on that one. And then just make sure that's select to black. And that will just be all zeros, 6 zeros here. And then click OK. Now you've got the foreground and the background. And the first color we want to fill is black. So we're going to go to Edit and fill with background color, black. Now it's a black circle. So we're going to go to Select and None, or you can press Shift, Control and A. So we'll click that and it will unselect the circle. And then we need to create a new layer. So we'll click here, Create New Layer, down here. And we make sure it's set to transparency and we'll click OK. Now we've got a blank layer. And think of it like tracing paper a bit, right? So we're going to draw on top of this black circle. And now we want a white circle inside. So if we check our original artwork, there's a white circle that sits in there and we've left a little bit of a black border here. So let's go back to this circle here, the artwork. We'll click on the Ellipse tool again. We'll hold down the Control and the Shift key and we'll drag out. In fact, we should drag first, then hold down Control and Shift afterwards. And we want to leave this black border, do you remember? So we don't want to go all the way, we want to come to about here. Let's do that again. So I'm going to press, so if you make a mistake, just press Ctrl Z or Edit, Undo, yeah? If your one's fine, leave it alone, but if you make a mistake like I've done, just do Edit, Undo. And we'll do it one more time. So we'll click here, drag with our mouse, Control and Shift, hold them down, and then we'll drag out, holding down the left mouse button to about here. And then we'll let go of the mouse button and then let go of Control and Shift afterwards, yeah? So we can see this circle, and then we'll simply go to Edit, fill with foreground color. Now we've got a white circle, and we'll go to select none, and we'll check the original artwork. So now we've got this black border, you see, this thin black border. Now we have that same thin black border here, and now we want to create another black circle to leave this white section here. So let's go back to the artwork, and we'll go to new layer, make it transparent. So we've got another piece of paper, tracing paper on top, you can think of it like that. And we'll go to Eclipse, and we'll hold the mouse button down in the center, drag it out, and hold down Shift and Control and drag it out. But we don't want to go too close this time. We want to leave that white section, yeah, something like here. And we'll let go, and we'll have this gap here, and we'll go to Edit, Fill with Background Color. So we want to create this white border around the edge, and we'll have this black in the middle. So let's go back to the artwork, and we can see we've got one final white circle with a similar sort of thickness, not as thick, but similar to the thickness of this one. So we want to make it a little bit less thicker. So we'll go to select none, we'll click on this new layer and make it a transparent one. So now we've got another new layer here. We'll go to the Eclipse tool, make sure it's selected. We will hold down the mouse, drag out, hold down Control and Shift, and we don't want it to be the same thickness as the white one, so it'll be a bit less, something like this. You can choose, you know, you can play around, experiment with this, it's your choice. But I'm going to do something around sort of this size here. And we want to fill this with white, so we'll go Edit, Fill with Foreground Color, Fill with White. Now we've got the white one. So let's go to Select None. And the next thing we want to do is create another blank layer. So we'll create New Layer, and we'll click Transparency, make sure that's selected, click OK. And now we're working on this top layer here. We're going to go to the paintbrush. So click on your paintbrush and click on the brush tools and make sure star is selected here. And then set the size to 55, set the aspect ratio to 1.5, set the angle to 66, or what you can set any angle in here to be fair, but I've set it to 66.25, and make sure the spacing is set to 100. Set the hardness to 100 and set the force to 100. So these three at the bottom are quite important, and the size. These ones here you can experiment with, yeah, but make sure spacing is set to 100. We're going to click on the Eclipse tool again after we've set the brush. So click on Eclipse tool, we'll click in the middle, and we'll hold down the Control and Shift key, and we're going to drag out so our circle is sitting almost in the middle. Try and get it in the middle of this white band around the edge, yeah, something like this around here. So we've got this white circle, we've got this circle sitting inside this white section here. And we're going to go to Edit and Fill Stroke Selection, yeah, here. We'll click that, and we'll leave all these settings, so we'll make sure it's solid color. We'll set the paint tool to paintbrush here, and emulate. We don't need this emulate dynamics, we don't need that. We can just click the stroke here, and that didn't work for some reason. So let's go back to Edit, Stroke Selection. Let's turn this one on. It's supposed to draw our stars, right? So let's go to the paint tool. This seems all okay. Okay, I'll see what's going on. So what we need to do, we made a little mistake here, right? So let's do Edit, Undo Stroke Selection, Edit, Undo Stroke Selection again. And we don't want to do Edit, Undo the Eclipse, we want to leave that there. The reason why we can't see the stars is because the foreground is set to white and the background here is already white. So we need to switch these around. So you click this little arrow option here to put black on top. Then if we go to Edit, Stroke Selection, we don't need this emulate, click Stroke, we'll get our stars. And it looks like we've got a slight overlapping issue here. Can you see on these top two stars? So it really depends on how your circle was drawn, how, you know, what size it was. So it can be a bit tricky to get this right. So what we'll do is, if your one's looking fine, then leave it alone. But if you've got some sort of overlapping here, you need to play around a little bit. So we do undo stroke selection. We'll undo that, and we'll set the spacing to set it to 110, around 110 here. Then we'll try again, and it's still overlapping here. So let's set it to 130, 130, 130. We'll undo it and we'll try one more time. It's getting closer, so we'll set it to 140, edit, undo the stroke, redo it, and let's set it to 160. We'll try finally 180. Here, that's good. Probably a little bit less, so probably about 170 would be perfect, I think. Edit, undo, edit, stroke selection, stroke. So 170 is a bit too, not enough, so it's 180, so we'll set it to 175. We'll undo the stroke. Sometimes you've got to play around with these things to get them quite right. So 175, let's set it to about 172. I want this to be almost perfect, right? Here we go, that's looking pretty good. So all the stars are now evenly spaced out. So you've got to go and do, if it doesn't look right and you've got overlapping stars and it's not quite right, you need to go and play around with the spacing here to get that right. But you can see after a few tries you will get it right, and it will look similar to this one here, right? Something similar. Play around with it. So if it's not looking right, go to edit, undo the stroke selection, change the setting to what you want it to be, and then go to edit, stroke selection, and then just make sure this is set up. Emulate brush dynamics, I'm not sure what that does, but let's tick it. It doesn't seem to do anything. We'll have to read up on that later, but here you can see the stars are pretty much evenly spaced. That's what we wanted. So it can be a little bit tricky, but play around with that and you should get it right. Then let's go back to our artwork, and we're almost done, right? We need to put this text in here. So to do that, we need to download that font. So let's go ahead and let's see here. So you can use any font you like. What you need to do is go to this website here. It's called 1001 Fonts, and it's called slugfest-font.html. That's the font I'm using. It's a free font that we can download, so we'll click this download button. And we'll just drag this zip file into this folder, and we'll extract it. So here we can see the font, right? This is the font we just downloaded. Now we need to install that on Windows, so let's just do that quickly. I've already done this font, so it may tell me that I can't do this, but we'll click on C drive, we'll go to Windows, go to fonts, and then we just drag the TTF file, drag and drop it in here. It's going to tell me, do you want to replace it? I'm going to say yeah, why not, because it's already been done. So that's how you install the font. What you'll probably have to do is restart your GIMP software, yeah, because that font won't be recognized. So if you go to File, Save As, and we'll save this. Let's just go to the desktop, and we'll give it a name here. Let's call it logo-new-01. So we're going to save this file, what we've done so far, and then you need to close down GIMP and then reload that file. So let's just do that anyway. We'll close this. We'll load up GIMP one more time. And then all we do is drag and drop this logo, the one that we just saved, and here it is. And I'll open up my original one if I can find it. Okay, it's not in here. I think I deleted it by accident, doesn't matter. We'll continue with this one. So what we do is create another new layer, and it'll be a transparent one, and now all we need to do is add the text. So we'll click on the text tool here, we'll click in the canvas, and we want to make sure we selected that Slugfest, or you can pick any font you want, but I'm happy to download this font, so that's the one I'm going to use. And then we can just click inside the canvas. Let's click inside here, and then we can type whatever we want. So we'll just call it like beachwear, something like this, right? Just for a beachwear company, you could say. Then we'll click on the move tool, and then when you click on the move tool, make sure this option here is selected layer, and then we can drag this, and it will snap, right? Because we're using the grid to snap. It will snap bang in the center, and you can type in any text, and you can use any font that you like. It's entirely your choice, right? Whatever text and font that you want to use. We could click on the text tool again and click on this text, select the text with our mouse, so highlight all of the text, and then we should be able to change the widths, like the spacing here. So if you want to experiment and change the spacing between the characters, and we can also change how much space is between the text above and below. So I'm going to set it to something like this, and we'll click back on the move tool, and then we can recenter it. Yeah. So one thing you've got to be careful of is when you're using the move tool, make sure you're clicking on the actual text itself rather than the background, because you'll end up moving this circle. If you do move it by accident and you let go of the mouse, all you do is press Ctrl Z or edit, undo, move layer, and it will move it back in position. So the only other thing we've got to do is put a little strap line underneath. So it's called beachwear. So let's go back to our text tool, and we'll pick a different font this time. We'll pick something a bit easier to read, something like Arial Bold. Arial Bold. We'll click back into the canvas here. In theory, really what we should do actually is click on this move tool, and then we should create a new layer. To create a new layer, and we should type in our next layer of text. The strap line underneath should be on its own layer, because then we can manipulate it separately. So we'll click on the tool, we've got Arial selected. The font size seems to be a bit big, so it's way too big. So let's click down here, and we'll type in women and men's beachwear, right? So when we type that in, that's gone way off the screen. So we press Ctrl A, and that will select all of this text, and then we can just reduce the font size. So we'll shrink it down to something like what we want. And this is really the wrong font, right? So we'll go to these fonts here, we'll scroll up, and we'll find Arial Bold. Here is it. Here it is. That will make it a bit easier to read. And we should really make it a little bit bigger, right? Something like this. So we can zoom in a little bit. So hold down the Control key and use your mouse wheel to zoom in and out, yeah? So let's zoom into about here. Then we want to click on the move tool. And then this is where you've got to be a bit careful, right? This is where it's a little bit tricky. You've got to zoom in quite a lot, and you really, when you're moving this small font, something like this, you need to really click somewhere where you actually have to click on a character on one of the letters. And when you left click on the letter, you'll see a little plus sign. Can you see this little plus sign between the S? That's the center point there. It's hard, if I let go, you're going to not see it. But if I click quite close to the S, you'll see this little plus sign next to the S on the left hand side. That's actually the center point. So we can just drag that to the blue line and then have it underneath, and that will be exactly in the middle. If we go back to the text tool and click inside, we should change that to a capital M and maybe this to a capital B, and let's scroll across and this to a capital W. So something like this, and we may want to reduce the spacing here. You see it's quite widely spaced, so what we should do is really zoom out a little bit. If you hold down the middle mouse button on your mouse wheel, the mouse wheel, hold it down, you can pan across like this, and then we want to use this tool here to reduce the amount of space between the characters. So something like this. Then we can go back to the move tool and make sure you're clicking on one of the characters, and then we can recenter it like this. Something like this. This should be pretty much in the center now. That's still a bit hard to read, so we can increase the font size. You can play around with it, pick a different font, make it a bit bigger. I'm going to leave you to experiment with that. But let's just see how it all turned out. Let's go to File, Save. Let's save our work. Let's go to File, Export. In fact, what we do is we're going to go to File, Save, and then we're going to go to File, Save As, and we're going to make a version 2. So click version 2 and save it. And when you do that, you should then have 2 different versions. In your directory, you've got the first version, which is this black and white, and we made a second version, which is also black and white, but we did that for a reason. What we're going to do now is have a little play with colors. So we'll click on this background circle here, the very bottom one down here, and we'll go to the paint bucket tool, and inside the paint bucket on this top, the black here at the top, we're going to select a different color. So let's select something like let's do like a yellow sort of color, right? So find a color that you like, something quite bright like yellow, click OK, and then you can use the paint bucket tool. In theory, we should be able to, in fact, we need to go to select. This one's still selected, right? So if we click select none, then click on this bottom layer, we should be able to fill it in. We have to be a bit careful what we click on. So if you end up filling in the background, press Ctrl Z and then zoom in a little bit and try and get it to fill here. It's where the X is, right? So it's not the actual paint bucket part, it's the X, the cross is what's going to use to fill the circle, so we can fill here as well. So we need to click on that layer. So we need to find that one, which is this one here, and we can click there and make that yellow. And you can experiment, and then maybe you can make the this outer one blue. So we'll click here, we'll find a blue color, maybe something a bit lighter, something like any color. We're just experimenting right now, and then we can click here and fill those in blue, and then fill the main circle in the middle. We can fill that blue. Then you can have a completely different color scheme, and then you can make the text white so it's a bit easier to read, right? But remember, this is version 2, so even if you save this, so if I were to save it now, then I can always go back and drag version 1 back into here, or we can go to File, Open, and we can click on version 1 and open it, and we retain that black and white version. Then you could save this and make a version 3 and a version 4 and a version 5 and change the colors and find out what colors you like. Personally, I don't really like that blue and yellow. It's not right, is it really? But you need to go and experiment and see what colors. Black and white looks pretty good actually. So it's up to you. Go and experiment. The last thing we'll do, I think, is we'll close this blue version. We'll stick with our white version. So we've got the white one open. We'll go to File and we'll go to Export. And let's just export it as a JPEG file. So we'll go to select type. We want JPEG from here. It's going to be called new logo 01.jpg. We'll export it. We leave it at 90. Click the export button. We can close down GIMP now. And then we've got this JPEG version. So here you can see what the logo looks like. And it's quite a high res, because remember we did it at quite a high resolution. And that might look quite nice on a t-shirt, right? Something like that. You can put your own brand in there. You could put some palm trees in the background if you want. You can do whatever you want, but I think the logo needs to be nice and clean. Something simple like this. And probably that text could have been aligned a bit better. There's quite a big gap here, and I don't know, it is quite centered though, to be fair. The font's quite nice, and I think it looks pretty decent. So now you can go and use this same concept. You can go and experiment. Now you know how to make those circles. You can have as many circles as you want in whatever style you want. And it doesn't have to be a circle, remember, it could have been a square. You could use the square selection tool, and you could have done a square box, and you could have another square box inside, and you can have squares and circles combined together. You can experiment with this. Now you've got the skill set, and you know how to build the layers, and you know how to do the stroke fill, and you know how to layer things on top of each other. You can really use that skill set to build quite a few different designs and different logo styles. So go and experiment now, right? So that's the end of this tutorial. I hope you found it interesting, and I look forward to seeing you in the next DCP web tutorial.